to this
So
matter.
it all looks, as the eye suggests, and as you confirm, like a very negligent investigation. Very negligent.
I'd say it's obviously more. I would go back to the fact that I've made a complaint about the police, and it certainly appeared to me, and it is borne out in the way that the Metropolitan Police have behaved. That you've complained about us, you're now no longer going to get service from us. Yeah.
A negligent investigation isn't something for which you can bring a civil action.
I'm not talking about very civil
but I'm
action.
just pointing out that. First thing a judge would think about all of this is what is driving this is an objection to, possibly a reasonable objection or an understandable objection to the negligent manner in which your complaints or the information you provided were investigated. Negligent investigation is not a tort because the police have on a public policy grounds have an immunity from it. Right. The other thing is we don't know if Hannah has been abused or not. You've no evidence that anybody touched the hair of her head. Now, I appreciate that grooming is a criminal offence, even if that doesn't happen. But, again, and this is not in any way to minimise the concerns you must have felt, there is no evidence that the least harm befell her. And that is something that would be in the forefront of the mind of anyone who is hearing this case.
Then I do take objection to that, because I do certainly think that harming a child, to engage a child in sexual behaviour like that, to incite the child to perform in that way for that person, is certainly harming my daughter. I saw it in her behaviour, so I 100% think my child has been harmed. Hence why there is a criminal offence to groom a child.
I say that
without harm, there clearly is harm there to my daughter.
The complicating feature is that there is a degree of consensual involvement by her in the continuing of the conversation.
If people from sexual offences support people sitting listening to you that a child is consenting in a relationship with an adult,
no,
I think they'd find that massively objectionable.
What I've just said is that there is consensual involvement in her continuing the conversations. She's consenting to continue the MSN conversation.
I don't know. Are you aware of how child abuse works? Sometimes children obviously get involved in things that they shouldn't be getting involved in.
Which is why the offence.
Hence why we have offences in
the
this
Sexual
thing.
Offences Act of 2003 was necessary. I know, and I don't think anyone around this table would think I didn't know. But a fact, and this goes back to the imminence, the urgency, the reasonableness of your conduct, the reasonableness of running the secretary ragged, is all to be judged on the basis that no one had harmed a hair of her head.
That's not
grooming being, I mean, there'd be no physical harm. It is correct. You can't prove otherwise, and you don't suggest otherwise in any of the documents that I have. So, I agree that grooming is a serious sexual offence, even if there is no meeting or contact. But nevertheless, in assessing how this should have been prioritised by the police, how quickly and by what level or rank of officer this should be investigated, a reality which will lead to more sympathy falling on the secretary than on you is that there was no implementation of any threat.
Okay. So no, I don't agree. Completely don't agree, and certainly the evidence doesn't support what you're saying, and I'll tell you why. The police have a duty to risk assess the situation, to prioritise. They have to. I agree. They have to prioritise, and they have to produce a risk assessment. They have to establish a risk to the child. How they're going to do? They would work up a case plan for it. What they're going to do. Now that's confirmed on the 2nd of September when I'm speaking to D.I. Hamilton that they have not risk assessed the situation. He agrees with me. He agrees that by not speaking to my child, that it is impossible for them to actually assess the situation to merit what risk is involved to my child. So the primary thing would have been, most certainly, to speak to my child, which is what I was saying, that 2 weeks later, they haven't even spoken to my child. That is a safety concern. Right. I don't know if to what extent the abuse happened to my child, or to what extent the abuse happened to other children. And certainly, if you look at recent cases of grooming, whereby, for example, the nursery worker recently, who was found with video phone of him raping a 3-year-old, in his care in a nursery, which came from grooming, you can see the very, very serious nature of it.
Worst can happen.
And certainly, this isn't. If you've read, have you read through the transcript? Have you read through the transcript?
Of the trial?
No, the transcript of the conversation I found about my daughter.
It's all the.
I've seen the extracts of it. Yes, yes.
Okay, so
Yeah. No, I don't minimise any of it.
this is a very, very weird, very. This isn't two teenagers talking. This is very, very weird, and this has been put through to various sexual support charities, organisations who support people who've been sexually abused. They've all looked at that. That is classic grooming.
Yeah, I agree.
Classic grooming behaviour.
Yeah.
There's not a 15-year-old boy on the other end of that,
Right.
as the police
Maybe
now
not.
wish to allege.
Well,
that is the case.
we don't know the basis on which they allege it. You suggest they have no basis for alleging it because they don't know.
Well,
they didn't investigate.
they didn't investigate. They didn't pick up the evidence.
Okay.
How can they have investigated who this person is and established that?
I
what
agree.
they're saying.
I agree. We cannot know that they are right to say that there's a 15-year-old involved. Moving on. Assault. I think if there is more than reasonable and necessary use of force. So on that, again, I would say.
So just
Cool.
yeah,
So
that'd be
the address we've got to. Yeah.
post to me.
Yeah.
Right, thank you very much.